Hello everybody, welcome to this video. It's the first of the exclusive videos available only to those of you who bought Mr. Bruff's Guide to English Language. Thank you for buying it. I hope you find this video really useful. We're going to talk about question 3 of the Paper 2 English Language exam. This question is a language analysis question, and it assesses Assessment Objective 2 to analyse writers' use of language using relevant subject terminology. This is a hard question. It's worth 12 marks and you should spend around 15 minutes answering it. It's a tricky question because you're likely to be asked to analyse the language used in a piece of non-fiction writing that perhaps was written for a private audience. In the past, you might have studied use of language in kind of newspaper articles and that kind of thing, but you may well be given in the exam something like a piece from a journal or a private letter, and that's a lot trickier. You might also be given something written as far back as the 19th century, and again that adds layers of difficulty to language analysis. So what do we mean by language analysis? Well, this question refers to the use of words, phrases, language techniques and sentence forms, very similar to question 2 of English Language Paper 1. But with English Language Paper 1, the extract you were given was a fiction piece, and therefore the language use is slightly different to what we're looking at in this exam, which is a non-fiction piece. You should still apply everything that we've covered already in the ebook and the video series about question 2 of the English Language Paper 1. So you should look at single words such as word class, nouns, verbs, adjectives, that kind of thing. You should look at phrases. You should look at sentence structures. Where are there simple sentences, compound, complex? Does it seem important? But I'm not going to cover those again here in this video or in the chapter of the ebook on this question, because all you have to do is look back to page 15 of the revision guide or one of the previous videos to see, details about word class and sentence structure. Little disclaimer alert, the exam boards don't really like it when you're given sort of acronyms to learn where each letter stands for something. They find that limits students, and that's absolutely right. I mean, the best way to analyse language, if you can do it, is to simply look at an extract and pick out words or phrases or sentence structures that seem to be significant, that seem to have been used for effect, and to write about what that effect is. Unfortunately, though, most people struggle with this question to the point where they need some help. So I've come up with a new acronym. You can see it in the revision guide, and I'm going to cover it in a second. But let's look at the sort of question you might get. How does Edgar Thompson use language to try to influence Mr. Woollock? 12 marks. You remember from the sources, and the sources I'm referring to are in the revision guide, but that this is the idea of a letter from a parent to the head teacher and the head teacher back to the parent. Now, one of the best ways to analyse language is to look for what I call arrested. These are language devices which are often used in persuasive writing: alliteration, rhetorical question, repetition, emotive language, statistics, the rule of 3, exaggeration and direct address. And the reason these are so good, and if you don't know what they are, here's the grid. So alliteration is a group of words which begin with the same sound or letter, such as smoking sucks. A rhetorical question is any question in a piece of writing which does not require an answer, such as do you want to die young? We know the answer is, well, obviously not. Repetition is where we say a word or a phrase more than once in a piece of writing to just drum the message home. Emotive language are very powerful words which elicit a powerful emotional response. Smoking is barbaric and torturous. The words barbaric and torturous are much more emotive, much more powerful than just saying smoking is bad. Statistics and numerical facts and data. 8 out of 10 smokers want to quit was a statistic, and the rule of 3 is a list of 3 things in a sentence, such as smoking is expensive, harmful and antisocial. Exaggeration is where we overstate a point deliberately, like one puff could kill us all, talking about cigarettes, over exaggerating the negative effect. And direct address, referring to the reader with the word you, such as you need to give up smoking. So My advice for this question is, number one, just pick out any words, phrases or sentence structures which seem to be deliberately chosen by the writer, perhaps go beyond their literal meaning or seem to have been deliberately chosen for effect. But many students struggle with that. If you're a student who thinks, well, I don't see anything, look for arrested, get arrested. Try and find arrested in there. The reason it's so good is because of the effect on the reader. The effect on the reader is always the same. Alliteration is always used to make the text catchy and stick in the reader's head. Rhetorical questions are always used to engage the reader to read on as they feel that by being addressed directly, the text is relevant to them. Repetition is always used to emphasize important points. Emotive language is always used to make things sound overly good or overly bad, depending on the purpose of the text. Statistics always make the text seem authoritative, accurate, and therefore believable. The rule of three always makes the text catchy and stick in your head. Exaggeration dramatically emphasizes an important point, and direct address, just like a rhetorical question, engages the reader to read on as they feel that by being addressed directly, the text is specifically for them. So if you find language analysis difficult, what you can do is you can memorize this grid on the screen. And you can then go into the exam, and if you find a rhetorical question, you can say the writer uses the rhetorical question, here's the quote, and the reason is, and the effect is, because it engages the reader to read it. And do you see what I mean? You can actually use these. Most students, you see, can pick out words or phrases that are significant, but they can't explain why they're used, why they're significant. They can sense that they're important, but they don't have the ability to write about the effect. If you're one of those students, memorize this grid, and in the next video we'll have a look at that in action about source B.